Yeah. Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the LPL. I'm joined by my good friend Bob Huang.
Oh wow, I'm
Bob.
your good friend. I'm so excited to be
Oh my God, you're so
here.
lame. Bob, tell us about that match that you just played.
uh, so I do feel. Oh, I hear an echo. Hold on. Does anybody else hear an echo?
Just close your stream,
Oh, duh.
Bob.
All right, hold on. All right. We Gucci now. All right, so back to your question. You were asking me about the match I just played. I feel 90% happy and 10% bad slash guilty because that was like almost not playing Magic. But I guess that's kind of what the show and tell deck is. I've kind of made my feelings clear. For those that don't know, I would ban a couple cards in Legacy right now. I would ban at the top of the list Ren and Six, but I would go further. I would ban Grizzlebrand, True Name, and Plague Engineer, just because I think those cards would make banning those cards would make the format like more diverse and interesting with better gameplay. And Grizzlebrand's kind of at the top of the list because there's just so many non-games when you play that card.
Yeah, but besides all that, how did you feel about the match going in? Obviously, like Emrakul versus Grindstone is kind of
Yeah,
favoring one person.
that was a lucky pairing. I expected Caleb to play a deck that was a little bit better against Dark Depths. He did stream Legacy like the day before, and I went and saw the decks that he played, and it's Caleb. So he literally played the Green Red Painter deck, he played Soldier Stompy, and he played Doomsday. I was like, all right, I'm not going to metagame against any of them. I feel
Yeah.
like Caleb might choose to play a deck better against Depths, so I'm just going to go with Sneak and Show because it's usually good against like random nonsense. Sneak and Show is pretty much good against everything that's not Delver or Reanimator, and I
Right.
didn't put him
Yeah,
on
yeah.
either of those decks, so I just was like, let's roll with this.
Yeah, trying to metagame versus specifically Caleb seems challenging, so I would have probably done a similar thing in your spot. Except I probably would have picked Rug Delver instead of Sneak and Joe. But, same sort of thing. But let's take a look at the bracket after we saw your match play out. So
Mm-hmm.
with the result of that match, there's only one undecided match in the lower bracket now, and that's the match we're about to see. Edgar and Magalhães versus Cyrus Corman-Gill. Obviously, you won your match, and the winners bracket has been completed as well. It's an elimination match, so after this, whoever loses, they're out. But the other person continues to fight another day.
Interesting. Jarvis, I see you in the top bracket again. You're gonna make a deep run again this year, looks like.
Yeah, I got lucky a few times, but also Rug is broken.
I mean, is it really luck if you've like made the finals of the last two LPL, so you're clearly gonna make the finals here. Sorry, Julian.
Yeah, I mean Delver's great. um, anyways, let's take a look at the Twitter poll results.
So this was before deck lists were released, but honestly, these two players are
I
both very well
mean,
known, and like they played
yeah.
the decks that people expected them to play. Cyrus is going to be playing Ant, and Edgar's playing the four-color Snow deck. So what do you think of this matchup in a vacuum, and then what do you think of their specific lists?
Let's save that for after we see the list. But generally, I do think Storm is favored. But
Mm-hmm.
we'll save that after we look at the deck lists.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I guess let's. All right. Let's talk about the first deck too. This is Ant. So we saw Bryant Cook play this deck earlier today, which is kind of funny because Bryant is also always known as the Test Storm player. But the two Storm
Mhm.
decks are fairly similar. Ant is more focused around Past in Flames, so you're basically trying to get a large tutor ritual train, and then find Past in Flames, flash them all back. And then win the game from there. It also has, several other angles of attack via ad nauseum and post board with Empty the Warrens as well.
Sometimes people have joked that this deck should really be called Piffed because
Mhm.
Passing Flames is a better engine card in this deck than Ad Nauseum is. If you actually take a look at this deck versus Bryant's, I think they're exactly one card off, and it's a sideboard. Or actually, I think Bryant had the main deck empty,
He
but
did.
I honestly these lists are basically identical to one another that we saw tonight.
Makes sense.
Let's take a look at the second deck list now. All right, this one's definitely in my wheelhouse. When Modern Horizons first came out, I looked at Arkham's Astrolabe and I'm like, this card's really powerful. It doesn't look powerful, is but what does it let you do? It lets you play snow-covered basics and Astrolabe, so it means you're immune to Wasteland, and you get to play basically a rainbow mana base. And you can sort of see that here. Edgar is 4 colors. The color he chose to exclude is white.
Interesting.
But in general, this deck in general is just heavily favored versus creature decks. Like, look at your Plague Engineers, your K Commands, your Liliana's Triumphs. It just generates a stack of 2-for-1s and tries to keep creatures off the board. Obviously, that's not going to be the most important thing for this matchup, but look at the changes Edgar has made from his usual list to address this matchup. We see Leovold, which is basically an overglorified hate bear versus Ant. And we see, more importantly, what is that green card? Costs a single green? People have been complaining about it? Can you tell me the name of that card, Bob?
Veil of Summer. Some people even think it should be banned.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit excessive, but look, Edgar has 4 in his 75.
Yeah,
and
that's wild.
And a card you normally don't see in this deck, Damping Sphere. That's definitely a nod to Cyrus specifically. And that's the big difference between this format and like a Grand Prix. You know who exactly you're playing against, so you should build your deck to be better versus specifically them.
But I also see that Edgar didn't go too far in that direction. Like, he definitely built his deck so that post board it would be really good against Ant, but he didn't. He still like made the concession that Cyrus has been playing some other decks lately, like Death and Taxes. So you still see some of the removal in the main deck in the case that Cyrus juked and decided not to kind of play into what he was known to play. So I think that's interesting. I think you made a really great point about Veil of Summer. Typically, these snow decks. Red is more of a focused color over green, but you can actually see that he's playing a lot more green cards. He's playing Abrupt Decay, Veil of Summer on the sideboard, and only like a couple Pyroblast where they can often play more of those cards. So I think he definitely tuned the deck well for the matchup without.
If you look at the mana base, it's really just a bug deck splashing red now because you can tell by the snow-covered forest.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is obviously he built this deck to beat Cyrus, but maybe it makes sense to build this deck this way regardless because of the presence of new cards like Oko. And Abrupt Decay is just at a premium right now when the format's so much about Ren and 6. So this might just be a better way of building this snow deck going forward.
And one last point, since he knew that Cyrus was somewhat playing Death and Taxes, this deck is naturally good versus Death and Taxes for the most part. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it is.
So he's sort of picked a deck that is naturally good versus Taxes and then tuned it to be better versus Ant to sort of try to cover all of the bases. So let's get down to the match. I think we're ready to start. All right. So it looks like Cyrus has won the die roll.
Yep.
Do
you like Cyrus's hand?
Well, so I don't know if you know Cyrus. Cyrus will basically keep any 7 as long as it's reasonable.
Is that hand reasonable?
I mean, if you know your opponent's 4 color snow, you're not under the gun, right?
Okay. It's funny that people aren't really playing Cabal Therapy anymore. That would be a fun hand to try in Cabal Therapy, but I guess he's on the play anyway, so. Ooh, does Cyrus even brainstorm here? I guess he does to hide the tutor. Yeah.
Probably. And also, do you think Edgar's hand was a keep? Note Edgar mulligan to 6.
Oh, that's tough. I think you had to keep that because you have the Force of Wills. But no blue source is obviously really, really bad. So
someone in chat points out Cyrus's hand literally could be anything by the next turn. Not too far from the truth.
So it looks like Cyrus chose to to hide the Infernal Tutor, which is, I think there might have been a ritual too. But yeah, it makes sense to hide the ritual. The tutor is kind of there's a Dark Petition as well, so it's not super necessary, but it's often better than Dark Petition.
So Brainstorm versus Discard is one of the fun sub games of Legacy. and is really skill testing on both sides. So like I think Cyrus had to think about what Edgar would think of his hand and what Edgar's likely to take. And also like just maybe you have to think about what card you want to draw next turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I think like his clear posturing is saying like take Dark Petition. Uh, Edgar doesn't have anything in his deck that could like exile the Tendrils of Agony. Otherwise, that'd be like potentially
right.
an interesting line. But interesting. So he actually did take the Lotus Petal, which is yep on Discord.
All right, everything seems to be back. All right, welcome back, y'all. Sorry about that. There were some small technical difficulties, but yeah, we're back to the action. Edgar's hand kind of awkward now.
Honor, I think you need to fix the hands. We see Edgar's hand twice.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so what happened was Cyrus cast Brainstorm and then fetched for Underground Sea and then Durest one of Edgar's discard spells. Edgar obviously, can't really play any spells because he doesn't have a blue source or a snow source.
Right.
So that's interesting. I think, yeah, so Cyrus's plan is to basically eventually find enough ways to grind through the last Force of Will, whether that's another discard spell or a Past in Flames.
Meanwhile, Edgar really wants to draw either a snow basic or a blue source next turn, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Even like a snow forest would be fine. Like it lets you cast Astrolabe, then you can cast Bonder off the Astrolabe. So,
yes. So Cyrus almost brainstorm locked himself, but fortunately he has an Infernal Tutor to probably tutor for either a Cabal Ritual or an LED.
I think he's yeah. Yeah. You're correct. I was about to make a really silly comment about whether he could win this turn, and then I just looked at the forest that Cyrus knows about, so that's obviously off the table.
Yeah.
So basically, one thing I thought about this matchup when I was looking at the deck list earlier, they both have a lot of cantrips. There's a lot of like room to maneuver, so I always find like the cantrip on cantrip matchups interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the decks are doing two completely different things, but they're both stapled together by like a consistency engine.
Blue soup.
Blue soup.
Delicious. Oh, hold on. Did it freeze again?
No, it's not frozen. Cyrus is just in the tank about Brainstorm, I think, right?
Oh yeah, it's not frozen because you can see the clock ticking down.
Yeah. It or maybe Cyrus's internet is slow. But I think Cyrus is trying to figure out if he should cast Tutor here or not, right? To shuffle.
Exactly. Yeah, and it looks like he wants to draw the card underneath. Did you see what it was? I guess we'll see it right now.
It's either Tendrils or Cabal Ritual.
Cabal
right?
Ritual. So he basically decided he wanted all of these cards.
Oh, this is interesting. You can bait a Force of Will on the Cabal Rit. No, it just hit threshold. And that's a lot of mana. Right.
Oh, I see the line now. See, I totally would have missed this line. Basically, by waiting a turn, he was able to force the Dark Petition to be used, to be countered by the Force of Will. Otherwise, the Dark Petition just gets a discard spell. So, I think Edgar's play is forced. That being said, I guess Cyrus still doesn't have a clean kill
Right.
from here because he's short on mana.
So,
So
the real issue is next. Wait,
what's happening?
Oh no,
he's
he's just gonna get Past in Flame. He's gonna get Past in Flames and say go.
Okay.
Next turn, flash it back.
Oh my god, that's a Galaxy Brain line that I would just never
Yeah.
see in like a million years playing Ant. Like this is why Cyrus won a GP. And I'm just like whenever I play Ant, I go like 3-2 or 2-3.
I think probably this is something he learned from thousands of matches of playing with this deck, but
No, I mean I think possibly, personally, that's a line that I would have to play a lot and see someone else do before I even start considering. And what was line? It was essentially using Dark Petition to bait the Force of Will, and then just picking up a Past in Flames and going off the following turn, given that you know the content of your opponent's hand. So,
Right.
I mean, it's not super Galaxy, but it's definitely like now that I've seen it, it's like something that I'll start looking for. But it's super interesting.
So one thing to notice that it's not completely clean. Cyrus would have to draw another mana source to actually make it work next turn. But the Antec is like 35 mana sources or some absurd amount.
So yeah, because he can flashback the Cabal Ritual, but then he's still only stuck with 3 mana. The Dark Petition.
Okay, so one really interesting thing that you might not have noticed right there, Edgar casts Astrolabe instead of Ponder. Do you know why? He wanted to preserve the blue card for Force of Will in case he top decked one.
Interesting. I guess he was doing the math of like something like Ponder into. I guess yeah, Ponder into Veil. Or actually, I guess that still wouldn't work because
No, he had used both of his mana sources.
Yeah, he used both of his mana.
So
Okay, that makes sense.
the play is forced to actually cast Astrolabe, but it's a really subtle point. But once he did it, I just immediately knew what he was thinking. But this is overkill now. We are dead by so much. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Cyrus top decked the Cabal Ritual, which was lethal.
I mean, I think a land does it too because you have excess mana to cast cantrips, right?
So I think he had exactly enough mana to flashback Cabal Ritual, and so that's 5 mana. And that's not enough to like start the chain or continue the chain. But yeah, let's talk about sideboarding now. So it looks like Cyrus has played this matchup a lot. His plan is to take out some of the more graveyard reliant cards because he knows that Edgar has Nile Spellbomb. So he's siding out Dark Petition and one of the Past in Flames, siding out some of the mana sources and bringing out a lot of grind cards and a lot of answers to permanence. So he's bringing in his own Veil of Summers, an Empty, and Abrupt Decays. So that makes sense from that end.
Meanwhile, Edgar has a ton of spot removal, which is not particularly good. But it's pretty clear that the Veils, the Damping Sphere, the Spell Bombs, the Blasts, and the Engineers and Discard are pretty good.
Yep. So he's basically just taking out all his removal, including the Astrolabes, and just going to fetch all non-basics, and instead bring out in a bunch of interactive cards and hate pieces. So I think Edgar is likely favored with 4 Veil of Summers. What's your guess on the percentages here?
I don't worry about the percentages. I just play the games and see what happens.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, the more technical answer is percentages are really hard to estimate without a large sample size.
That is true.
All right, let's get back to the game. Ooh, Edgar's hand looks like he will keep, and Cyrus's hand probably keeping if it's a reasonable 7 because that's what Cyrus does.
So I'm assuming there's a land missing in Cyrus's hand that we don't see.
Yeah, they need to pop out their carrots.
It wasn't even a blue source. And he's like, that's fine. Well, I can see the appeal of keeping Cyrus's hand, though. It didn't have the brainstorm, but it has like plenty of interaction. Oh, another thing to know is he probably brought in the Flusterstorms to counter the Veil of Summers.
Yeah, that's cute. The real problem with that plan is, I think, late in the game, that's not going to work very well.
Yeah, it could depend.
It definitely depends. Anyways, ooh, Thoughtseize is a pretty good draw there.
Yeah, so worth noting, Cyrus could have played the Petal, but I guess he saw the hand and saw that there wasn't a Thoughtseize. Also, 2-for-1ing yourself against the Thoughtseize is not great, so maybe this is just fine and dandy.
Agreed. We took Flusterstorm. Interesting.
That is very interesting. Especially when Cyrus doesn't have that much mana.
I think it makes sense because you know your hand's slow enough that you can't permanently mana screw them. So you take the card that's going to interact with your Force of Will the most awkwardly for you.
Uh-huh.
So basically, here's what's going on. Edgar knows that he's not going to end the game quickly. It's going to take a while. So if you take the Lotus Petal trying to mana screw your opponent that has a lot of mana in their deck, it's not going to work out that well on average for you.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have taken the Lotus Petal. I would consider taking Tutor or LED. Basically something just to delay Cyrus for longer. Because, I don't know, his hand's not that strong.
Jeez, Dress is kind of brutal here. Where are the cantrips? Where are the veils? Cantrip, veil, force. There's a lot
Interesting.
of good draws
Would you
here.
cycle the Spell Bomb soon? I think I probably would.
I think you can wait one more turn.
Yeah, well, this turn you can play the Plague Engineer, I guess, and then the next turn you can cycle. Or he's thinking if it's worth cycling to get another crack at a land so he can just slam Jace next turn. I think I would probably cycle the Spell Bomb.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, Cyrus didn't shuffle on the Ponder. It saw Duress, a Misty Rainforest, and I forgot the third card. Oh, it was another Infernal Tutor. So can Cyrus win this turn? So remember, he doesn't have access to Pass in Flames. So it would have to, and he doesn't have access to Empty the Warrens either, and he knows about the Plague Engineer. So he could go for Ad Nauseam, maybe? Let me think. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, he can go for Ad Nauseam from 18 life, which is a pretty powerful play.
Also, it's mostly deterministic because you. Oh, interesting. We don't go for that route. One reason you might not do it is that you still have that option next turn, right?
Yes.
Like you just have to fade 2 blind draw steps from Edgar.
Given there's a Spell Bomb. So, I mean, the Spell Bomb is going to draw Edgar a card either way.
Right.
I mean, it's a little... Like, there's a good chance Edgar slams Jace next turn. So it's kind of, potentially up to 5 new cards. But you've also discarded 2 of the Force of Wills. And if he taps out for Jace, he can't hold up Veil of Summer.
Right.
So...
Most notably, if he cycles Spellbomb and doesn't tap out for Jace even with 4 lands, then what do you do?
Oh, interesting. So Edgar is super respecting the Past in Flames. Given that he already knows that Cyrus had like Tutor LED, he's like, you know what? I just can't even afford to crack this, which is frankly correct. These guys are playing at a high level here.
Also, you can tutor for the second LED here, which is kind of sick.
Yep. And that's his
I
plan.
think
I think he only needs to crack one of the LEDs in order to Ad Nauseam.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, I guess you do have to Ad Nauseam because it doesn't make sense.
You actually have to crack both.
Yeah. Ad Nauseam with 1 black floating. The land has been played. Storm's already 5.
So now Edgar's deciding if he wants to crack Spellbomb for another look at Force of Will. I think it's pretty safe too, because I think Cyrus is forced into not going for Past in Flames if he cracks it or doesn't crack it. So interesting.
Right.
Okay. Or I guess he might as well just do it now, right? Like I think this is the best spot to do it.
Probably. It's kind of complicated, I think.
What's the upside to not cracking it now? I guess like Cyrus has already discarded his hand. I guess the upside is like you want Cyrus to like duress you and stuff, and then you can crack it and draw Veil.
Yeah, I guess that's it. it's hard because you're only taking blind draws, but there are 4 Veils in the deck.
But I guess if you draw a Veil, like Cyrus is passing the turn no matter what.
Yeah.
What
I'm not
other
sure. It's kind of a complicated situation. There's a lot of variables to consider, and I think
does Edgar play like something like Flusterstorm? Like I think those are more reasons to crack.
another Plague Engineer is no help, unfortunately.
Well, let's see how the blind flips go. All right, so we see it in Cyrus showing up in Cyrus's hand. He is at 4 life now. He has hit an empty,
wow.
which doesn't really work against Plague Engineer.
And note 2 LEDs are gone, so it's hard to get Hellbent for that tutor.
Correct.
But you could just duress your opponent twice. However, he's not going to be thrilled to see this double Plague Engineer because Cyrus is at 4. That's a 2-turn clock from a Grey Ogre.
He has an Abrupt Decay.
Sure, but then you can just play a second one.
Yeah. It's very interesting. We just assumed Cyrus kind of won
Oh
with
my
the ad
God.
nauseum, but no,
It looks like we're brainstorm locked, unless if we Inferno Tutor next turn.
Yeah, we can tutor next turn.
But
and what's the plan from there? I guess to go for Past in Flames at some point. But yeah, you need to empty your hand too, which is not trivial. Interesting.
But also, there's not much in the graveyard. Look at the graveyard.
Right, you can put a Cabal Ritual in there, but that's all you got.
So, remember when Edgar was thinking about when to crack that spell bomb and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
So, by waiting a little bit longer, he got a little.
He cleared out another tutor.
Yeah. So it's not irrelevant, and all these things are going to add up. Like, I guess if you draw well, you could kill this turn, but we saw a land and another tutor, which is not exactly what Cyrus is looking for here.
So I think Cyrus is looking, he's going to keep the second tutor and find another way to get Hellbent. This turn he can decay the Plague Engineer. He could even Thoughtseize the other one and go to 2. So...
Yeah, you can Thoughtseize and Decay. That's pretty good, I guess. He doesn't know about the second engineer, though, right?
He duressed last turn, and Edgar drew Jace for turn, so he does know. But the problem is with playing the Thoughtseize is also it's like, what if Edgar, draws something else that's pretty good? You kind of want a backup discard spell, but on the other hand, it's.
Yeah, I don't know what he's supposed to do here. He's likely going to Thoughtseize plus Decay, I think, because if you know about the second engineer, I think you kind of have to do that, right?
Well, the alternative to not Thoughtseizing the engineer is trying to find a line to win next turn, which I think is pretty tough because he needs to get Hellbent. He's playing land next turn too.
Anyways, Brainstorm's a hard card to resolve when you have 9 cards in your hand.
Yeah, and we also see one thing that did come up was because Cyrus boarded in Flusterstorms, and he basically diluted his deck a lot in order to kind of match up with Edgar's hate that Edgar played. So his ad nauseum was fairly weak, and it was partly because he diluted his deck.
Yeah. We are definitely seeing that here. Cyrus just working out his options, trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen. Because you know about the Jace as well from Edgar. Whoa, he cycled Veil?
Did he draw a card? Okay, so I guess he's trying to get Hellbent for this turn. Is this enough to go off with? Oh my gosh, if this is enough to go off with, like Cyrus is just so galaxy brain that like I
Yeah,
can't
I
even
would
handle
not
it.
have figured out any
Um,
of
but
this.
Edgar top deck Force of Will, so Cyrus does have the Thoughtseize. The only question is like, does he realize that he
Oh my god! Does Edgar force
hold on,
this?
hold on. Ah, wait. So okay,
Oh my god! It's
so
happening!
uh, I
We're gonna
just
die to Fast and Flames.
oh my god, that's why the line took so long because it was so galaxy. I all right, I'm never learning Storm. I'm just saying it right now. I'm never gonna learn this deck because it's the size of Cyrus's brain, like it's like the memes,
I
right?
did not see this happening either.
Like
Uh,
holy crap! And Edgar drew the Force of Will. I think Edgar did have a decision to force the Cabal Ritual, which would have bought him another turn. I don't know if that turn would have been good enough to
oh
win the
my
match, but
god!
that was wild. That was wild. I,
I
I,
guess
I still don't even know what line he saw. Like, I mean,
I
like I
don't
saw
know.
him do it. And I still don't even know what the line was. I could not recite to you like either of the lines Cyrus took this game. Like, I'm just flabbergasted. And now I'm thinking back because Cyrus, when he won the Grand Prix, he's like, "Yeah, all my matches were very normal. I just like stormed off and found Past in Flames and won." But now I'm like, did you really, or did you just like not notice that your brain is so large?
I think he probably thinks it's normal, and most people who haven't played thousands of matches with the deck would not think it's normal.
Yeah. All right. That was. I'm really happy that we saw that happen. Holy crap. Let's get Cyrus to just never put this deck down because watching him play it is just a sheer delight.
Yeah, I feel. I mean, it was kind of sad, but I guess the Four Snow deck still couldn't overcome Storm despite being.
hmm Well, he never drew any of his
Well,
Veil of
yeah, he
Summers,
didn't draw his
and like
cards.
game one he was or no, this game he was mana screwed, and then game one he just didn't have that much going on either. I mean, that's the downside to these four color control decks, I guess. You really need to like layer on the hate pieces to win this matchup.
Right, right. I mean, that was quite a match to watch. Apologies or condolences to Edgar, but Cyrus advances on. He lives to fight another day.
Yeah, let's take a look at today's results.
Sorry, I don't have them yet.
Um,
Working on it.
I guess we don't have an updated graphic yet, but I believe. Let's see if I can remember it real quick.
hmm Well, so in the upper bracket, we saw Julian defeat Pleasant Kenobi, and so Julian made it to the top four in the winner's side.
Yeah.
In the lower bracket, we saw. Oh, here we go. So Phil defeated Bryant with Nyalum, even though he cut his Gaddock Teague. His pieces post board were enough to get there. So he'll be facing off against the Goat Reanimator, Eric. Pleasant Kenobi fell down into the losers bracket, and he'll be facing Brian Gottlieb. I will be playing against the great Gucci. I'm very excited about that. And then Cyrus just defeated Edgar to play against Bonde in the next round. So this is awesome. I think like the quality and caliber of the players of LPL this year are better than ever before, and like we saw some pretty sweet matches today, and I'm excited to see what happens next. The other cool thing is like people brought some like pretty crazy decks, and there's a lot of talk about Rug Delver being the boogeyman, but in a smaller event like this, I think it could make a lot of sense to like not play Rug Delver, although we do see a lot of people still playing that deck too.
Yeah, in a smaller event like this, it might be easier to find a deck that's better versus your expected metagame from your opponent.
hmm
Like, especially. Oh wow! I also just realized all of the MPL members are still alive in this event. Javier, Autumn, and Mengucci are still all very much alive in the event. And one of the matches is actually Autumn versus Javier.
No way, is that a elimination match? Yeah, it
No,
must
it's in
be.
the winners bracket.
Oh, it is in the winners bracket. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
makes sense. Both Javier and Autumn are having fantastic years.
Yeah. And you
Uh,
might get to play against them at the MC coming up.
oh gosh, that'll. I mean, it'll be exciting either way. I love Magic, obviously, but anyways, let's see what else. Anything else you want to close up with? Oh, we should thank our sponsors, Card Hoarder, Wizards of the Coast, and Scott Monroe. Without them, this would not be possible. I am also personally sponsored by Card Hoarder. They're great. If you need any cards, check them out. And you can follow the league on liquidpedia.org/magic. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next week to stream more of the LPL.